Quickly before we start the video, I'd just like to say be sure to hit that sub button if you enjoy my content, and also the notification button to stay updated on my latest uploads. Yo, what is up guys, my name is Steven and welcome back to a brand new Clash Royale video. Today, we are going to be going over the top 3 most hated cards in Clash Royale, or just my personal feelings on which are one of the most annoyingest cards in Clash Royale. Now first up, we actually have the Hog Freeze strategy, or just any freeze strategy in general, such as Balloon Freeze, Graveyard Freeze, or Goblin Bell Freeze, Miner Freeze. I don't really care, but these freeze strategies, they're pretty fucking annoying, and especially when you get a Hog Rider right to your tower or a Mini P.E.K.K.A right to your tower and they freeze it when it has like 1 HP left and you don't have your zap cycle through or any of your cards available because you're only at 1 elite star and you're sitting at 1 elite star. That Mini P.E.K.K.A is gonna destroy you. It's gonna destroy your whole tower, and just because of that 4 elite star freeze spell. Now, freeze spells are especially overpowered at top meta since they freeze for 6 seconds, and I think there really needs to be like a balance of length of the freeze spell, because the length of a freeze spell is a huge difference between level 1 and level 8, and what makes it so popular, especially in the high metas, is basically the 6-second freeze duration, which kind of actually needs to be nerfed. The real reason why the freeze spell did get a nerf when it first started out is it had a big, huge ass radius, and it also got, I guess, 7 seconds of its freeze duration, and it actually remained as one of the most overpowered cards in the game for a pretty long time, until Supercell had enough of it and decided to nerf it after the P.E.K.K.A double Prince deck was getting really popular, especially in the game, because you would place an Inferno Tower to defend against the P.E.K.K.A, but then they could just drop a freeze spell and your Inferno Tower is completely shut down. And back when Clash Royale first came out, the Hog Freeze deck was the meta deck, at least when I first started. I mean, seriously, when I first started playing Clash Royale, Hog Freeze was the meta. Everybody was using Hog Freeze, and the top players, we would see Hog Freeze everywhere on TV Royale. It was really different back then when I first started playing Clash Royale, but it was definitely worth it to download it early in beta stage. But still, Hog Freeze definitely still one of the most annoying decks in the game, especially with Balloon Freeze. And as you guys can see right there, the Barbarians would have killed my Hog, but there goes the Freeze, and it takes out the tower just like that. Freeze, if it's played correctly, it can be so fucking annoying, and it can be one of the most annoying cards in the game if you know how to play it. Next up, guys, we have the Expo. This is probably not a surprise because the Expo, way too overpowered when it first came out. It had a range of 13, and it got so many buffs slash nerfs, and it just, you know, made it pretty crazy to play. I mean, back then when the Expo first came out, and when the Hog Freeze just got a nerf, the Expo was the next best card to play, and actually stayed as one of the most overpowered cards for a fairly long time, until Supercell decided to nerf and tone down all of the troll cards. But the Expo, it basically had a range of 13, and it basically allowed you to put Teslas in front of the Expo. So you would go Tesla, Expo, and Bomb Tower, and that would pretty much make it impossible for your opponent to take it out. And the only real counter to the Expo was the Rocket, which nobody even really played back then unless you were another Expo user. But now the Expo got a range of 12, and it basically really makes it harder just to play it down. Right here, I can't just place a Tesla in front of it, so the Inferno Tower is really the only thing that's viable to protect yourself against the Expo, I guess. But still, if you just rocket the Expo, it's going to take out most of its HP, but now Supercell kind of balanced it out that the Expo is going to be easier to take out, but you can't just rocket it and it's going to be destroyed like that, because that's what a lot of people used to do back then when the Expo was pretty overpowered. And if you come out with a mirror rocket strategy and their Expo deck was heavy enough, you could just go Expo, rocket, and then rocket, mirror onto their tower, and you could just keep chipping their tower down with the Expo being taken out by the rocket and the mirrored rocket landing on their tower. And let's just never forget Expo Tesla. Let's just never forget that fucking abomination. And the last and final most annoying card in Clash Royale is none other than the fat ass himself, the gay, most no-skill card in the whole entire game, the Royal Giant. Now, the Royal Giant gotten like so many buffs when it first came out. It was one of the most useless cards in the game, by my opinion, but Supercell, being the dicks they are, they decided to buff the Royal Giant and let people actually use it in the meta, which I think was a pretty stupid idea to do, because the Royal Giant, when it first came out, it had its original attack speed, its original damage, and it would still shoot from pretty much the river. It was a mortar on wheels, and there's even a clip of Molt cursing out and raging over a Royal Giant user. I mean, it was just complete madness. I even stopped playing for a while just because of the Royal Giant, how annoying that card was. And it took so long for Supercell to tone it down, just because it was a useless card. It got a buff. Supercell actually wanted people to use that piece of shit, so they decided to wait like 2 fucking months just to nerf the Royal Giant. And the first nerf didn't even kill the Royal Giant, and it took them like 1 more month to nerf the Royal Giant once again. And you guys still see lots of Royal Giant noobs running around, even in the low arenas and in 4K, but still, I don't see that many Royal Giants at 4K, but if you go a little bit higher, a little bit lower, you're obviously going to see those Royal Giant users. It's pretty much a moving mortar, it shoots from the river, and the reason why it's more overpowered than the Expo and Mortar, because you can't just take it out with a no-skill card. You can't just like equal no skill with no skill. You actually have to take the Royal Giant out with barbarians, midi P.E.K.K.A.s, and other shits. But even if you do defend against the Royal Giant completely, you can't not prevent the Royal Giant from doing any damage to your tower. I mean, the Expo, you can easily just distract it with a troop or building, but if you play the Royal Giant, there's like literally no way you can stop it from taking damage on your tower. Let's say you place down Inferno Tower. You think that's going to counter it? Nope. They zap the minions. And the reason why the Royal Giant is one of the most annoying cards in the game is that it takes more elixir to counter it than to actually place it down. Now, the Royal Giant costs 6 elixir, but if you want to counter it, you can't just go mini P.E.K.K.A. and, you know, expect to not get any damage done to your tower. It'll actually still do a fairly low amount of damage to your tower, but still, it's going to get that chip off. And if you just place the mini P.E.K.K.A., that's not going to be enough. To completely counter the Royal Giant, you're going to have to do barbarians and mini P.E.K.K.A., and that's given if it's not getting any support from any other troops. If they place a Valkyrie in front of it, you're pretty much dead. And that's 9 elixir. You're going to have to spend way more elixir just to counter that Royal Giant push. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video on my top 3 most annoying / hated cards in Clash Royale. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to smack that like button down below, and if you haven't subscribed already, be sure to subscribe and turn on push notifications to stay updated on my latest uploads.